croissant, croissant. Right. For anyone who's struggling with network, um, they will share a Google link. Okay, I think maybe that will help with your bandwidth. Oh, a lot of people on Google Meet because Google Meet link was also sent. Crazy. Abdul Rashid, can you tell them please that, hey man, the thing is on Zoom. Please and thank you. I'm assigning you, Abdul Rashid, to do that for me. I appreciate it. Um, Tato says, review and test same week. We are in trouble. You'll be just fine. The other one is saying motivation not found. Hey guys, I thought it was a joke that we were not okay, but I think it's serious. Is it really that serious? Okay, so let's spend the next 2 minutes just dissecting that. What's happening? Anyone can unmute and then we can have a chat, or we can throw this stuff in the chats. T says we are overstimulated on the verge of a breakdown. That's the We Think Code way. But it's saying it's very serious. So someone is saying, I lose any more weight, I'll be invisible. Amen. You gotta start early with summer bodies. Hashirama says 0%. CCU says assessment mark had major problems. We'll talk about that. Peter says, I don't know if it was spoken about, but a lot of us saw 0 for our results, but we definitely did not get 0. All right, we got 0. Hey, the zeros are a thing. Hey, Dr. Lube says, rest in peace. Okay. Soka says tired. He says, since our guys, this is a pre-assessment meeting. Okay, but anyway, let me indulge for now. Since our results are looking like that, now what was the point? Now we will talk about what's gonna come. This money in pain. The zeros are painful. Assessments, demo, 1-on-1. Yeah, no, you guys are crying for it all. You guys are crying for it all. Okay, cool. Let's talk about the previous assessment. Let's talk about the experience first, and then we'll talk about um, the results thereafter. So let's just reflect on the previous assessment, what it had. How did you feel as you were encountered on the questions? Were they too difficult? Were they not too difficult? You managed what's happening there? Let's have a chat. Vakil is saying the comprehensive questions with a heartbreaky thingy. What about the comprehensive questions, Vakil? Is that to say, are we getting punished for attempting to solve? Why would you think you're getting punished? This is saying it's a whole essay, yes and yes. Bella says that was a tough test, fun but challenging. The last one was a curveball. I think most knew the Fibonacci, but not Fibonacci list. Why did you have to cram? You see, the problem comes when you guys start cramming. Like that's not the way. Dr. Loop, Doug, relax. We said we'll come to that, right? We're talking about the assessment and how we felt as we were doing Lube, yeah, about the assessment. Lube. Zoe says, I like the comprehensive questions. The coding questions were easy. Um, Mata Yawana says, take it easy on the code. Mawatu says, I honestly need a minimum of 5 hours to complete the assessment. 5 hours is a lot. Hashirama says, on lead code, net assessment would definitely be a medium. Do you want easy assessments? We can't do that. Siva says it was more just getting stuck doing one coding question for too long. TT says, for some reason, my comprehensive answers weren't graded. Okay, cool. We'll look into that. Okay, guys, can you please just stop talking about the scorings and stuff? Let's talk about the assessment as a whole. Jose Izila says it was a massacre. Ndumisu says, let's keep it under 5 questions. Soka says the time was little, honestly. Double homicide. If you know, you know, I guess. Yeah. Scuba says you want us to fail. I don't know. Are you talking to me or are you talking to someone else? Tiseto says, honestly, I think just a bit more time in future. Okay, cool. I think there's a common theme here. So technically we already are giving you a bit of extra time, but then I think we'll consider more extra time. So let's see. We'll consider that in terms of time. So he says, I like the comprehensive questions. Okay, I think it's the same thing. That's what it says. Easy assessments, weak developers. Not really, but yes. Kemukato says there's something about tests not running when I have to do assessments. Kemukato, why does that happen only for assessments? But then all throughout, as you were doing the other projects, everything is working just fine. Is it you who panics during the assessment? Because that does happen. All right. So, when for the previous assessment, right? The intention was for you to solve problems as usual, right? But then the other one is to just solidify your understanding with some concepts and whether you can conceptualize and word, put your thought processes down. That's why you can check even for the third question was more of a scenario-based question. So how exactly would you go about solving a problem? That's scenario-based as well. Like, let's talk about it. That's why I always say, let's talk about it. So the more you think about it, you talk about it, it becomes very easy to solve problems without needing to sit down and trying to code. So that's why I will always endorse the theme of just let's talk about stuff. Yeah. So that was for the previous assessment. Yeah, and it's going to be a similar theme going into the next assessment. I think what we'll do is that we'll consider the timing thing. So let's see what that will give us. But then the theme in general sticks. So the assessment that we are going to go into is a summative assessment. So a summative assessment is just basically means that everything that we've done so far, all the fundamental concepts that we would have learned all throughout your journey so far. Some of the things that were touched on during some of our assessments that we have done and some of the projects that you've done thus far will be tested or assessed against in your final assessment. So it's essentially a final exam wrapping up the semester. So that's exactly what's coming. So the email should already kind of told you some of the concepts that you should be looking out for in your next assessment. But yeah, in general, just consider that every concept that you've learned to this day can and will be tested against the coming assessment. Right. So let me just go back to the chats. Let's see. Zoro says, what should we do if we're marked and failing? Just email us. He says, invigilators that hover over you and say yo or comment under their breath. Crazy stuff. Let's move on. Hunter says, so would you say those who answered just by commenting their logic would receive marks? So would you say those who answered just by commenting their logic? I don't understand your question, Hunter. Maybe you can just rephrase the question or elaborate. You can also unmute and just have a chat. I don't understand your question. Buddha says partial credits were pretty unfair. You get the question right, but partially. So so sometimes so when you answer, right, you need to answer questions extensively. So you can't just give vague answers and then you expect us to read in between the lines. We are not going to do that. If we're going to read in between the lines, then we'll give you an in between the line mark or point. So that's what partial means. Julia says, do all assessments weigh the same for final mark? I think for your feedback, it states clearly how the assessments actually weigh. So this is asking, unrelated, are we going to move to Java? Yes, you'll be moving to Java right after this semester. This is saying, I have some questions about my results. Sure, send us an email or you can just come through to the performance team office and then we'll be happy to walk you through that. Notando is asking, what does summative mean? I explained it already, but I'll explain it again. A summative is basically a combination of everything that you've done. So meaning that all the topics that the fundamental concepts that you would have learned throughout your journey thus far can be assessed against in your assessment. So summative. Hashirama is asking, who is Hashirama? Is that your real name, Hashirama? Or no, Hashirama means something different, Japanese. Will the summative assessment weigh more than the previous assessment? If so, by how much? Yes, the summative usually weighs more because it serves as a final exam, technically. So you will know, Hashirama. Zoe is asking it to come. Okay, cool. Thank you. Zoe was answering your question. Tobeka, as I said, we'll consider the time thing. Okay. Guys, I'm not sure if you guys are listening. So if I had already said something, could you please, because I'm trying to go through all the chats. So what's saying, instead of writing actual code, you explain the intended logic for a function. No, we will not be giving points for pseudocode for coding questions. No. Ambulito says, I feel like my form needs to be remarked for partial credits. No problem. Just reach out. We'll do that for you. Sandile says, honestly, on a positive note, I'm enjoying the challenge. Keep them coming. Diamond is made under pressure. Da, 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 da. On answering the question, seems like I have to be more descriptive. Yes. So that's why I'm pushing back. If something is partial, it just means that you did not give a substantiated answer, right? So I think I spoke about this in the previous pre-assessment meeting, where I did say that when we were still using forms, that some of your answers were vague. You expected us to know the answer, but you were just giving fake stuff. And at some points where you needed to substantiate, you were not substantiating enough to actually answer the question. So with that, when you substantiate, give reasoning, give examples to show that you actually understand what's happening there. So if something is partial, it's partial by intention. It's not by chance. All right. This person is asking about something for next semester. Teams changing. Most probably is. Lumisa says, if you were asked, how would you prepare for the upcoming test exactly? There's an answer for you there. Redo all the assessments. I would just brush up on the concepts that I learned, right? But then I still feel like you guys approach these assessments in the wrong way. And I'm going to say it again. In terms of solving problems, there's never a formula on how to solve problems. There isn't a formula, right? But you can technically say there is a formula to solving problems. And that is the foundation of your knowledge. So the fact that you can say, I know for loops, I know what functions are, I know what conditional statements are, I know what variables are, right? Literally, that should serve as part of your formula. You read the question, you understand the problem, and then you're like, okay, cool. Now I have the problem. How do I solve this problem using the tools that I have, using the formula that I have? Literally, it literally just stems from the concepts that you should know. There's no clear way like, oh, there's going to be a question asking what Mavusana, how much Mavusana spends on on 5 quarters. How much that? No, no, no. It's you understanding the problem and then deciding how to solve the problem using the things that you should be knowing at this point in time. So, how would you prepare? Just brush up on the concepts. And also just read books, guys. Just read books. Because I think one of the or just read stuff, right? When you're on Twitter, you guys read all those Twitter threads. I don't know why you can't replicate that into this, where now you are able to read and read something for understanding so that you can decipher what you need to decipher from that thing, right? You're able to read Facebook posts, no matter how long it is. You are able to keep your attention span for Twitter stuff. You're able to watch who's the guy, the gay guy, YouTube guy. who just who's always on everyone's case on YouTube and Twitter. Musakawa, that you're able to keep your attention span and watch those long videos and watch it and read the posts and replicate that. Yeah, it's the same thing. And Denise is saying, are we going to have rewrites next week? And how do they work? We will have a chat on rewrites a bit later on in the week. And no, they're not rewrites, by the way, but we'll have a chat about that later on in the week. Musiso is still saying the same thing that I've been talking about. All right. Let me see. Gulile was saying, since the one is a summative assessment, what's the difference? Does the whole more? Okay. Yeah, I think I already touched on that. Zoe is asking, would it be better to say one must learn the tools? Not exactly, right? I think they were saying the same thing all throughout your primary school journey to your high school journey. Maybe it did not make sense at the time. But then now I think you are old enough to discern that, oh, I see what that means, right? Imagine you need to buy bread. You don't have $100. Do you know that tomorrow you won't have $100? Maybe you'll have it next week. You don't know. There's no formula to stuff. Like there's no formula. But then when the problem arises, you need to make a plan to solve that problem. So you can never memorize the solution. Let's have a song about target. Maybe was Musa Kaula. Zoro saying coding books don't have drama. So as I said, rewrites, we'll talk about that a bit later on. Prince, please, let's be respectful, okay? Let's be respectful. As much as I communicate and just try to make these meetings fun, does not mean that this is not a professional space. Could you please be respectful? And if you don't want to be here, then I wouldn't expect you to be in this meeting. It's not compulsory. You don't have to be in here. Cool. And Denise was saying, besides previous tests and curriculum, which other resources? By the way, I'm just gonna stick on this, right? As I said, that we will be looking into the ratings, so you can just email. It's as easy as that. Demis was saying, besides previous tests and curriculum, which other resources did you use when you were a student? Documentation and just a lot of breaking of code. But for me, it was literally just breaking a lot of code. It's just trying to write code, having it not make sense until I get to a point where it makes sense. As I said, there's no formula to it, right? What works for me might not work for you. So you need to find a way that works for you. And another one is having conversations about these things. I think it puts you at a better place. So you can't die alone. Just go to Google, go to Sanele, go to whoever. Just have the conversation. Trust me, your thinking on these things usually changes when you talk about these things. Zoe says you can always ask ChatGPT to make pictures for you. If you guys want pictures, okay, we'll see. All right, cool. Any more questions? Otherwise, I think we will call this a day, and all the best with your demos and your assessment later on in the week. Questions? No questions? Everyone happy? Thumbs up. Cool. Okay, cool. Thank you. Bye. Wait, do you check YouTube? Maybe there's a question. Should before you go. Look at YouTube. Cool. Think you
Hi,
did.
Musai.
Oh, yes. What's up?
Tava here, Cape Town. You said you will touch on the rewrites. You see that you want to add.
Yeah, we'll let you know a bit later on in the week.
What should we do?